can do so. So the recording started. I'm looking at a screen now that says what the continuity of learning plan is for our primary and prep schools, and SWAY is quite an important part of that strategy, hence why we're putting on these kind of webinars. I did one this morning where we looked at the basics of SWAY, and now we're kind of going on a little bit. I can do a little bit of recapping, but the idea of this one is to look at some slightly different content and enable us to move forward in, if you like, the second phase of the strategy, which looks a little bit beyond the basics of SWAY, but also getting responses from pupils to make it a bit more of a two-way process. There are some additional self-paced courses, and this document hopefully has been shared with your school. It may not have reached down to you. There will also be a page on the hub which will be related to this as well, and you can look at some self-paced learning or join the webinars or watch the recordings. It's just helpful probably just to quickly recap why we're using SWAY. It's part of Office 365 and it's simple to use. The end user just gets a web link to access, and it renders really well even on a mobile phone. So we think most households have at least that. And then it's great for putting in different sort of multimedia material, and you can keep coming back to the same SWAY, editing it, updating it, duplicating it, whatever you need to do. So it's a pretty useful tool. Now, building on from this morning where we just looked at basically putting the cards in the storyline view, we're now going to have a look at trying to link in some forms, some OneDrive requests as well. So basically it's not just a one-way communication. There are facilities that enable children to send back completed work or to fill out a form as part of their work. So I'm going to stop sharing this, and I'm going to share my desktop instead. So that will just take a moment to come through, and if I ask perhaps Robin if he can just tell me when he's seeing my desktop come through, and hopefully he'll be able to confirm if he's seeing my SWAY at the moment. Perhaps because I can't see the message board when I'm sharing, could somebody just unmute?
Yes, yes it is, yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. Just I can't see the message board when I'm
Okay, that's fine.
sharing the screen. It's just a slight limitation of Skype. Okay, so here's my SWAY, and we're familiar, I hope, with this storyline view. It has all the cards I need to put together the content in my SWAY. And schools have been doing a really great job of collating that material, putting it together, and now we're just looking at where can we go next? How can we enhance the provision that we're already doing? So I want to look at a couple of ideas in particular in this session. So I've got my title card and some explanatory text. I'm now using sections like this where it says Monday to build up the content for that particular day. You might be using a SWAY per week, you might be looking at one day at a time. So this basically takes the idea of one day at a time. It then uses this little subheading just to divide my Monday up into the sections, like I've got history, English and maths, and we're just going to work through that and see some of the ideas that we can put in. And if I show you this SWAY where it is at the moment, I'll then put in some more elements further down the SWAY. But the key, one of the key things I want to show you is when I play this SWAY to you, here's the content. I've got a video here, but now I've embedded a form, which again is part of Microsoft Office, that the children can answer when they've watched the video. So rather than just watch the video, it's watch the video, answer these questions that are based on the video, and submit your answer once you've answered all the questions. And that way the teacher gets a response from the pupils, and they can see the level of engagement that particular resource is having. Otherwise, the metrics we're getting on our sways are a little bit basic. You see how many people have viewed it, but you don't know how many have kind of responded to a particular task. So what I want to do here is put in some material to do with this particular section here, English, for example. So we're just looking at our sentence work and want to add an activity to do with sentences. So as I was saying, part of Office 365, which you're familiar with the desktop here, is a section called Forms, and it's right next door to Sway, and you can link the form into the Sway, which is what we're doing today. So when you click on Forms, it takes you to any form you've created, and if you've never created a form before, it's your opportunity to start. And when you go into the Forms area, and it'll just ask me to log in again, it'll give you a choice between a new form or a new quiz. And there's a subtle difference. The quizzes here have the ability to self-mark. You can set the answers, whereas a form is basically a survey where you collect open-ended information. So it's probably the quizzes that we're most interested in, but there may be other times when there's no such thing as a right answer, you just want to collect some information. So the form I want to work on is this one called Six Sentences, but I could start from scratch, but just to save time, I've got a form here which I've just started, and you can see it's already got a few questions in it. Now, because my form is going to be accessible by anyone, it's quite important I have these sort of questions at the beginning. What is your name? What class are you in? And I'll add another question here, although this may not be relevant much of the time for you. I'm going to click Add New Question, and I'm going to give a text entry or a text response, and it is, what school are you in? Because it may be that you're sharing forms between several schools as well, and I know certain schools are doing that, but obviously you don't need this if it's just going out to a single class. You may just want what is your name. But if you don't put these questions in, when you get the responses back, then you haven't got a clue who's answered the particular form that you've sent. And you'll see in this form I've also made the question required. That means they can't skip beyond it. So what is your name? They have to answer it. They have to answer all these questions. And actually the only bit really that they've got to do here is try and improve this sentence. And this time they've got a bit more room. So they've got a long answer where they can type in their response. So I will create a form in a minute from scratch as well, but just to save time, I've already got some questions here. I'm now going to do the bit where I want to share this to my Sway. So I've worked on my form. In the top right, I've got the share section, and I've got a couple of things to think about here. The first is anyone with a link can respond, or do I want them to log into an Office 365 account to respond? Most of the time, the reason we've chosen Sway is because you don't need an Office 365 account, so anyone with the link can respond. Do I just want it to be a link in my Sway, or do I want to embed it in the Sway? The nice thing about embedding it in this way is that it appears right there. They don't lose focus. It's in the same window, just like you saw the videos above, the questions below. So that's quite a nice way of doing it. If you've got a very long and complicated form, then it might be easier to put it as a separate link. But if it's relatively short, it fits quite nicely in this way. So that little symbol there is the embed symbol, and I copy that. That goes to my clipboard. It says this ready. This code is now ready. I'm going to go back to my sway, and I'd like this little form, this little activity to come here underneath my text card. So I click there and add the plus, use the plus sign to add. In this case, it's a media card. So any of your embedding is in media, and you'll notice it uses exactly the same symbol. That's a universal symbol for embed. And all I've got to do now is paste that code in. So hold down Control, press V, there's the code in. It then says what size would you like it to be on the page. You can kind of choose from a couple of options, and then that little bit's done. So I'm going to press play and just see how that looks in the form. So you can see, let me just refresh that page. You can see hopefully that my form will be embedded rather than a link in that. So if I scroll down, there's the Norman form, and here's the English form. Okay, something's gone a little bit wrong there. Let me just have a look, see what's happened. Okay, I obviously was out of the sway too long. It's always good to recap it, isn't it? So let's embed that and Control V here. Just make that a little bit smaller. Let's click out there, check it's all stuck this time. Hopefully this time you can see I've got my little form in here, so the children can be within the sway and fill in the various information. They click submit. I then get a little notification that someone's filled my form in, and I go back to the form and I'll be able to see the responses. These will come in the right hand side, and you'll see any of the responses that you get. You'll be able to open that in Excel and have a look down in a spreadsheet how many children undertook the assessment, what mark did they get if you were doing self-marking questions, etc. So that's going to be quite useful to get that integration in your sway. So we can put forms in, and what I'm going to do is put one other form of, not so much form this time, but another way of soliciting a response from a class. And this time I'm going to use something called a file request. So what I want to do is firstly give them a link to a worksheet from my OneDrive, and then I want to collect their finished file back into my OneDrive. So we're going to have a quick look at how we can do that as another way of gathering pupil responses and taking our sways to the next level. So the first thing I want to do here is actually put a link in to my OneDrive. So at the top here I've got OneDrive open. You know it's part of Office 365. You can find OneDrive, and you can find the resource in your OneDrive that you want to share. You can click on the share icon and get that anyone can view link. So I need to open up this particular file to anyone, not people with Office 365 accounts. I'm going to untick editing, and I'm going to apply that. Then I can get this link. Okay, so that link wants to go into my sway. So I'm going to use that link here, and I'm going to put something like worksheet. Paste in that link and click OK. Okay, so there's my worksheet. I need a little bit of formatting there because I've got a little bit, put that in slightly the wrong place, but not to worry. Let's just do that again. So 7 times table worksheet. Let's create a bit of space for the link. Let me just make sure I've got my cursor in the right place. Put the word worksheet to be the actual word of the link. Okay, that's so far so good with that one. Now I'm going to say something like, once completed the worksheet, submit it here. Okay, so I've got to create somewhere in my OneDrive for them to put it. So here's back in my OneDrive. Let's say for this purposes I want to create a new folder perhaps. So I'm going to click New Folder, and let's just call this Y5 Maths Work Submitted. Doesn't really matter what name you call it as long as it makes some sort of sense to you. I'm going to create the folder, and I'm going to give this folder a new sort of property. So if I go to the 3 dots, it shows all the actions, and the action we're going to use is relatively new in OneDrive, and it's called request files. So that means people can submit information into it. Okay, it says what files are you requesting? I'm going to say maths work. That'll do. Click next. And now it gives me a link that I can share on my Sway to the users of that Sway. So make sure that's copied, click done, back into the Sway. I'm just going to create that link. I'm going to call it Maths Worksheets. Doesn't really matter what you call it as long as it's something obvious. And paste in that link. So now they've got the download of the worksheet from my OneDrive and also a place to upload it. If we have a little look at how that looks, I click play. My Sway's building up. There's my little form to collect information from the video. There's my sentence work. And now in my maths, I obviously put that worksheet in twice, there's the file submission. Now if I just copy that link, if I open that link in a new private window, it won't know who I am. Normally the children won't need to do this, but because if I open it now, it will just take me back to that folder. But I want you to imagine this is a child who's now clicked on that, and what it will do is open up. It won't ask for any logins, and it will ask them to add their file to the maths work folder that you've created, and then you can find a file. Let me just quickly find something from that maths worksheet here. Let's open up here. Imagine I've completed this sheet. It then asks my name. Now this is really useful because it means then you know exactly who's submitted the form, unless they do something really stupid like I've done and put in a fake name. But hopefully your children will just use their appropriate names. And then what happens then is they get a message saying, great, that's uploaded. I'm going to close that window down. And if I go to my OneDrive and click here, maths work submitted, we can see that James Bond has submitted his 7 times table work. I can open that up. It could be a photograph of the work, it could be a Word document. It doesn't really mind what the file is. It's just a great way of them being able to submit files into your OneDrive. So the idea behind taking our sways further forward is being able to kind of embed forms which we can create nice and easily by going to new quiz and starting out a quiz. I'll just do a very quick times tables one. You can add images if you so wish, add some description. First question, what is your name? That's always going to be the first question. And then you can start adding either multiple choice or text answers. So I'll only do 4 times 7 equals, and you can do multiple choice, etc. You just build that up using the form. If you want to make sure they don't skip a question, you make it required so they can't submit an empty answer. You're then ready to share that with an anyone can link and a copy the embed code like we did. So that's taking our sways to the next level. I'm going to stop sharing my desktop now and then just go through any of the questions that have come up. So I'm really sorry that Adam had some sound problems and Claire couldn't see the form. Hopefully you got there in the end. How can we see which children have submitted the work? So in your OneDrive, if you're doing the file requests from that, you'll see which children have done it, because the first question is going to be, what is your name? So in a form you always ask, what is your name, and in the file requests ask them to put their name in. So that way, both ways, you will know who has filled in the form. Of course, you are reliant on them putting in their right name, but generally, children will be compliant about that. They wanted to upload a photo, they would just take it from their saved docs. Yeah, so that they could upload from a phone, they could upload from a laptop. So yeah, so it works perfectly well on an iPad, an iPhone, or a normal phone. Obviously you're more restricted in the sort of documents you'll find. So hopefully, Jennifer, that answers your question. Mark's asking, when you go back to your OneDrive and look in the folder, you'll find any docs they've uploaded. Yeah, that's great. Thanks for that clarification, Mark. Can parents upload videos in the same way? Exactly, yes, they can, because basically that link doesn't know who the recipient is. So whoever you share the sway with would be able to upload a file.
So I don't really know it.
Again, you're kind of reliant on people using this sensibly. If I forward that link to my, to somebody else, they could upload something as well. So it's something you'd have to monitor. But the good thing is, if somebody does submit something inappropriate, it's only you that's offended, not everybody else, because nobody else sees in a OneDrive submission or a form submission, nobody sees anybody else's submission. So it's quite safe in that respect. And if someone's being a bit silly, at least you know who it is, and you can, email them, phone them, do whatever, however you're going to contact them, and talk about appropriate behavior. Can they upload multiple times? Yes, that link stays good for that particular folder. So what I would suggest we did with that is, well, you might have 3 or 4 folders where you request files for your different subjects, just so it helps you, manage the file submissions that are getting in. It would be great if you had a class of 30 and you got 30 file submissions. That would be fantastic. My guess is you'd be probably, to begin with, maybe working at a kind of a 50% kind of rate. Yeah, so nursery, we like to see videos of them singing, pictures. Yeah, fantastic. That will work in the same way. So, you know, you can get parents to take pictures of their children doing the tasks. They can upload it so you see it. But remember, it's only you see it, and obviously the parent who uploaded it will have seen it. So that could be a really good workflow for those younger children who have got some supervision from, you know, the parents there. So there is a self-paced learning to go with this, where you can have a go and work through this at your own rate. I will also make this recording available on the hub where the other recording from this morning will go when I sort that one out. So they'll be up by tomorrow. If there's any final questions, please put them in the chat box or unmute and ask away. That's fine. It's great that I've got 70 of you on the call. It's really good that we're keen to move forward with our sways. I know that subject writers, subject advisors will be producing sways to share with you, and they want you to kind of use the bits that you find useful and put them in your own sway, and they'll be sharing little videos as well that you can put in. So Sway is going to be a useful tool for us moving forward, and you are going to get some kind of content support with it. So thank you everyone for joining me this afternoon. I do hope it's been useful. If you want to stay on the line for a couple of minutes and ask some questions, I'll stop the recording so they won't be recorded. But thanks for joining us, and look out for any others